Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Heartwise Conversation.
Hmm.
I'm Vic Sorrell, one of your hosts.
I'm Deb Moore, another one of your hosts.
And to the best of our knowledge, that's
All of us.
your host team.
I'm sure there are
Exactly.
angels there. Yes.
We make absolute allowance and appreciation for all the good entities that are supporting and surrounding, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But my, it's been a very interesting few weeks since we've sat down to have a conversation, which was actually right before Christmas. We hope that many of you were able to catch our Christmas Day special, where we talked about spiral dynamics.
That's right.
Which was a great conversation. I think I'm curious to kind of start out today by just wondering, for you, what has been bubbling up to the surface as the result? I know you're a watcher, of people who watch. What has been bubbling up as the result of everything you've been seeing in the past 3 weeks?
Well, the first thing that comes
in the world.
Yes,
Yeah.
in the world. The first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question is I saw a woman on TikTok. Actually,
I finally got on.
It
was your fault.
I know. Isn't it entertaining?
It really is.
It really is entertaining.
I was so surprised at the quality
Yes.
of the experiences.
Yes. Quite entertaining.
Uh-huh.
But this woman gave a little, 1 minute speech about what's going on, and at the heart of it was this idea: the closest a woman comes to death is while giving birth, and the United States is giving birth to the new life, the next evolution of who we are, and it's bloody, and it's messy, and there's afterbirth, and there's it's not nature, the natural world is not a pristine and clean little meditation room, right? It's bloody.
Yeah.
And so I feel like so much of what is happening, as tragic and as scary as some of it is, if I can pull back, I can be at the place of very, very focused on the events and what's happening and who said this and who did this and who's getting indicted and who's getting pardoned, and I can, if I can step back about 5 giant steps, Mother may I, then I start to see how all of this is kind of happening of its own, in a way, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and I think that you have introduced a really brilliant image to this process in the giving birth process, because I think that ideally, when a birth happens, there is a team to assist.
Yes.
And I see light workers and people who have been preparing ourselves for times where truth can seem distant, or where truth can seem forgotten. We have been preparing for that exact experience. In other words, the teaching of know the truth in spite of the circumstances, or in spite of the appearances. Right. We have been honing that spiritual muscle of being able to remain focused on a truth that maybe we can't measure, maybe we can't give concrete, tangible examples in the physical world right now. But that's our job as the support team.
That is our job.
To literally hold the light.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what can be beautiful in times like these is, I found that the more I deepen in my own spiritual journey, the fewer things I know for sure. But the things I know for sure, I know for sure.
Yeah.
And it may just be, it's not a whole smorgasbord of ideas. It's a few key, and everything has to resonate with that. And I think that may be the beauty that we are able to realize out of this, is that people are going to get really clear. People are getting really clear about where their lines are, about what they believe to be true, about what they will stand for. And so, that, and I think, but we also have to be diligent. You're right. We have to be a team, because people who are not light workers are also very clear what their lines are.
Oh, sure. Well, their fear.
Yeah.
Driven by fear, motivated by fear, and so therefore they enable fear, more fear in the world. So I think you've said it here before, and I resonate with it very strongly when you've mentioned that there is a place where people's viewpoint, when it is harmful to the rights and the experiences of others, has to be reconciled. It has to be somehow managed in order to preserve the rights, the experience, the sanity, the peace, of those who could potentially be victimized by a harmful point of view. I really feel that. I don't believe that we have to withhold love from people who are in the harmful viewpoint, but I do feel like there has to be a way for the society to reckon with that.
Right, absolutely. I mean, when I was a freshman in college, which was 72 years ago, when I was a freshman in college, my very first semester, 1982, I had a professor, a history professor, who started the class very first day, walked into all these, young 18-year-old, we know everything people, and he said, he wrote the word freedom on the board, and he said, what does that mean? Right, so a very nice conversation took place in that classroom. A lot of people were like, well, it means you have the right to do whatever you want to do. Well, do I have the right to murder somebody? No, you don't have the right to do that. So finally, he wrote underneath the word, he wrote, my freedom ends where your freedom begins. And I've never forgotten that, because when things get mushy, or, well, the other side has this point and this side has this point, what's true? I always go back to, where are the bounds of my freedom? Right? Now that sounds like it doesn't make sense, right? Freedom shouldn't have bounds, but the truth is that I have abused that very idea the second that I start to impose on your ability to carry that out. And so I just look at those folks who are allowing more freedom for others, expanding freedom for others, protecting others' freedom, and that's how I kind of clarify my own position, if you will.
Yeah, I feel that. And there's a part of A Course in Miracles that says, our self-perception will determine our behavior. So therefore, in order for us to truly be the light team, we have to see ourselves, for ourselves, by ourselves, in absolute assurance and clarity, or we run the risk of not being the light. If we do not see ourselves as the light, we are going to be so much less likely to show up as the light. So, I don't know about you, but it just so happens that myself, and along with about 37 of my closest friends, have been going through the exorcism of life this past year, this past 18 months.
Yeah.
Meaning all of our shit is up and out and in our face all the time to look at, to see. And you mentioned a minute ago about being sure. What feels very true for me is that all of this has come up so that we have the opportunity to reconcile it so that it doesn't change the way we see ourselves ultimately. In other words, when our shortcomings, quote unquote, our faults, our struggles, when they come up, what do we do with them such that we're still able to see ourselves as the light? Right. And as the result of seeing ourselves as the light, we're able to acquire the knowledge, use the tools
Mhm.
that can help us address
Mhm.
what we see coming up in ourselves that scares us.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I think when we get in that place where we start to see ourselves as the stuff that's coming up
Uh-huh.
and we don't see ourselves apart from it as the light, then we can really start to spiral.
Right. Right.
We're not the stuff that comes up,
Right.
right?
Right.
But we are an awareness,
Mhm.
right? That is available, and that is independent
Mhm.
of our struggles.
Right. As Muji would say, if I can perceive my shit coming up, then I am not my shit coming up. Because I can't see myself, right?
Yeah.
So I am the seer. And so, and I think another part of the last year that's been divine, I think there's been a benefit in people not being able to join together with their spiritual community for a little bit. Now, there's also drawbacks, so don't get me wrong, I'd love to be able to go back. But people have been kind of forced to go, okay, what do you believe?
Mhm.
All alone in your chamber.
Mhm.
Who are you? What do you stand for? What do you believe?
Which goes back to, we have to be able to see ourselves
Mm-hmm.
independently of the experiences of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times, in
Mm-hmm.
in romantic relationships especially,
Right.
I love the way that I look through your eyes.
Right.
So can we please continue to go on these dates, right? Can
Mhm.
we please,
Yes.
it can be so easy to, use the experience of someone else
Yeah.
to allow ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to let our light be real.
Mm-hmm.
But we can do it on our own, and I think it's so important that we be able to.
Right.
It's so important we be able to see ourselves in our light and the opportunity that is ours in the world
Mm-hmm.
as that light.
Mm-hmm.
Now more than ever.
Yeah.
Now more than ever.
And that's the beauty for me of ritual.
Mm.
Ritual is, to me, an ongoing reminder of who I really am. And if a ritual becomes anything other than that, that's when it becomes hollow
Mm.
and empty and, something. So, that's one of the things that I would encourage anybody to do, is to figure out what, even the tiniest thing. You know what? I light this one candle every day. That's all I'm going to do. That's going to be the beginning of my ritual. I'm just going to light it, and while I light it, I'm going to remember that I am divine and I am just observing all this stuff and let it start from there. You know what I mean? Because if I don't do something, if I let that go, it is so easy to go 3 weeks down the road and I've never thought once about who I really am.
Yes.
Right?
And on that note, I'll just sort of do a little check-in. I think I've mentioned here before, and I know I have in some of my talks on Sundays, that I think it was November 28th, I started the practice of writing 70 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
I, Victor Sorrell, completely forgive myself, or
Mhm.
forgive myself completely.
Mhm.
That's what the sentence is. And I intended and intend to keep this up for 6 months.
Mhm.
Now, have I done it absolutely every day?
Mhm.
No. And what I realized is it's more about the continual returning to it
Yes.
than absolutely hitting it every day.
Yes.
Right. But because I have continued it, and
Mhm.
because I do continue it, I have really experienced some shifts. And two things that I've noticed in my life. The number one thing is people that I never even realized
Mhm.
I needed to forgive have come up into my consciousness about this experience I had with them,
Wow.
the way that I felt, and I just let it go. Like I never actively forgave them. I just said they had a bad day, I wasn't at my best,
Mhm.
let it go, right?
Mhm.
But it's come up. So when they come up, when these experiences come up, I've been going through an active forgiveness process with each of these people and those circumstances. And here's what's happened that is exactly what Edwene Gaines says will happen. Money has shown up unexpectedly in my life from places I could have never predicted.
It's like you cleared out energy
It's
for
exactly
new energy to come in.
exactly.
Mhm.
Now, That's just my experience thus far.
Right.
It has happened, and I feel like it's worth noting.
Right.
You know,
Right.
just little things here and there.
Right.
Are
you a perfectionist?
No.
No.
I mean, only from the extent that I completely recognize that perfectionism or perfection is relative, is
Right.
not a thing of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So why even go there?
Right.
You know, do I like things to be my best?
Mm-hmm.
Do I like to try to bring excellence into the experience as often as possible? Sure.
Yeah.
But perfectionism,
Right.
it's not something I resonate with.
See, I think I have had some. I think I have had a perfectionism streak over my life. You know that they say that the number one characteristic of a perfectionist is putting things off,
Oh.
procrastination.
Hmm.
Because I know I can't do it perfectly, so I'm going to put it off because I can only accept doing it perfectly, right? So, but that same thing that you said, there have been times in my life when I set an intention to do something on an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm.
I miss one day and I go, well, that's blown, right? And then I just walk away from it.
A diet or
But
anything.
but that idea, and I've gotten better at that, I think, as I've gotten older, is that
Same.
idea of you know what, that's not the point really. The point is to continually remember and remind yourself to come back to this point.
Oh, I used to be really consistent
Uh-huh.
with, if I slip and eat a Hershey's Kiss at lunch,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to have a banana split in the afternoon.
That's right.
For dinner, I'm going to
That's
have a
right.
burger and fries
That's
because
right.
the day is blown.
That's
and
right.
before I go to bed,
Yep.
maybe a little piece of cake.
I know.
And
right?
I'll be back on track
Yeah.
tomorrow. But for today,
Yeah.
let me just take in this extra 16,000 calories
Exactly.
instead of an extra, how many is in a
Absolutely.
Hershey Kiss, right?
I ended
Woo!
a year of vegetarianism in my 20s because I helped somebody move and they bought a sausage and pepperoni pizza. And I was hungry. And I ate one piece of it and I'm like, well, that's blown. And that kind of, that has tripped me up so many times. Oh my gosh.
We are such an interesting species.
I know, right? I know.
mean,
Yeah.
So one other thing I was going to ask you too, quickly before we move off the subject, because I thought it was interesting that you brought up perfectionism.
Mhm.
Do you think that perfectionism is really about trying to reconcile with shame?
Yes, I think perfectionism is a form of maybe self-denial or self-recrimination,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I'm not perfect, which I'm not going to be in this human expression,
Right.
if I'm not perfect, then I can justify the reasons why all those other people thought I was less than. And yep, I'm gonna fit with the narrative that I've been given, that I'm somehow not good enough.
Exactly.
And
so
that runs in my head. So let me keep this perfect, because I know what perfection is. I know what it is, right? I know what a perfectly clean kitchen looks like. I do. I saw a picture of it in Martha Stewart Living. I know what a perfectly clean kitchen looks like. So if I don't ever achieve that, then I can always fulfill my narrative that I'm not quite enough somehow. Yes.
Oh man, I can feel that. And also, just sort of making the distinguishing clarification between guilt associated to an event. I did something that I feel was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Shame, I am wrong.
Right.
I am bad.
Yeah. Inherently.
Right?
Yeah.
Can't ever outrun it.
Right.
Can't ever get ahead of it.
Mhm.
Can't ever reconcile it or release
Mhm.
it
Mm-hmm.
until you decide to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that does take some work. There's no question about it.
Yes.
There's no question about it. But I can see how that perfectionism is an attempt to try to outrun shame, and you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it. Just like
Right.
you cannot attain perfection, because here's the reality about that Martha Stewart kitchen:
Yep.
lighting.
Lighting, right? And a whole
Lighting.
crew of people
Exactly.
who get toothpicks and
Right.
toothbrushes out,
Right.
and yeah.
Oh, they probably didn't even do that.
They
It's
just
probably
put it together.
The
They
lighting.
built it. Yeah.
The lighting was such that you couldn't see
You couldn't. Yeah,
the
exactly.
imperfections, which
Exactly.
that's another thing.
That's right.
But going back to being the light,
Yes.
right? Holding up the light
Holding up.
is the only.
That's
true
an
real
interesting metaphor. Then the lighting is what makes us perfect. The lighting is what makes the difference. Being the light is all we need to be enough, and to be okay, and to be glossy magazine centerfold worthy.
Absolutely. If the light is present, the imperfections don't matter. They fall
Right.
away,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, that's beautiful.
well,
Who knew?
Spirit did it again.
Did it again.
Brought us full circle.
Yep.
Anything else before we wrap this one? Anything else on your heart?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
Thank you for continuing to do this with me.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure
It is
and a
mine.
gift. I always feel better.
I do too.
You know, so maybe this is just our therapy.
It's just us.
Thank you for
Our
coming
little group.
along.
Yeah, thanks for
We're having a ball.
being part of our group therapy sessions.
Exactly. So we send you the best, and we'll see you next time on Heartwise.
Bye bye. Okay.